asked me to take up the chair at this point. If I'll put up some comments, contributions, questions, but I think it would be useful if from this meeting we could come to some agreements about what we're going to do next in terms of Atherton, whether it's going to be part of the kind of people against cuts in Wigan, or whether it's going to have its own kind of separate group. I think it'd be useful to take something away from the meeting as well as just having a general discussion. So does anyone want to kick off? Or start, shall I say?
Is it possible the Labour Party or any of the councillors in Wigan could resign instead of pushing these through? And resign and go to prison if you have to be. Stand up for yourselves. Some principles. Other people have gone to prison and not done it. I hate to be to slag the Labour Party off, I'm really glad they're here. But within council, already 60% of the careers officers are going. They've had the redundancies. Right? Also, day centres are closing. Tunstall Lane day centres going. Mental health people going. Our most vulnerable people. Day centres have gone down from 7 days a week to 5 days a week, implemented by this council. This council privatised Lawn Care in Wigan. Okay. People were not getting fed because it went private. So for the Labour Party to come here as if there's some, God-given right to see how good they are, is not true. Because they was implementing cuts anyway. But I'm really glad they're on our side, because without them we will be stuffed.
Well, from the revenue now, I was concerned about the number of jobs that's going to be going, and I think we've got to see more people to get more factors out there to be collected.
So, just as a comment, the average compliance officer in HMRC is in 658,000 a year, but they're cutting 13,000 jobs and revenue customers. Any more?
I just can't see the point of cutting jobs in the civil sector. Because basically, they've got to make them redundant, it's going to cost money. And then they're going to all be put on benefits, which is going to cost money. May as well just keep them employed and keep them in tax. Keep the tax coming in. I just can't see where they're coming from, it's government itself. You should be investing in the country, not taking stuff away. I think people need to stand up.
Well, going on to the welfare reform, I do have benefits, I'm disabled, and I'm very concerned because the governments are on about actually cutting I'd say contribution-based benefits, which obviously will affect me, which I think is highly unfair. And I do hope, that will be a major issue put to them as well, which I hope will be.
Ian, sorry.
Basically, what we've got to understand here, I think, is that this government, the Tory government, look after the rich, right? And they have declared war on working people. Let's not be kid ourselves here about, whether it's right or whether it's wrong. They aim to return us back to the 30s. Esseltine, as Ellen said, they want to roll 60 years back. These people want to get their hands on your taxes. All your taxes you pay, and they've got no mandate whatsoever to do this. Everybody who works, no matter who they are, if they work for a wage, they're going to suffer. There are people around at the moment who think they've got a nice job, and they're okay, they're safe, but they're not going to be safe, because you're going to have the National Health Service is going to suffer, because that's being privatised as well. People don't believe it, because this government down in London are doing it all by skullduggery. The public of this country have got to get together and tell these people in London we're not going to have it, and we've got to get rid of them ASAP.
We have to have a local group. We have to organise, and it's going to be very difficult to mount a campaign unless we all stand together. It doesn't matter what political party it is if your mum's not getting her rent paid. If your nan is probably being told to move from the house she's lived in for 40 years and move into a one-bedroom flat in, I don't know, Ince. You understand what I mean? Somewhere not here. Because that's what's going to happen. Ordinary people have to become involved. The second year is going to be hell. The third year of the cuts, which is only in 18 months' time, it's going to be absolutely devastating. So we have to have a local group, it has to be non-partisan, and we have to do it now, so we can slowly build up our resources, our defence mechanisms, because we are at war, and maybe people should think about the fact that we're at war and we haven't realised it.
There has to be an alternative to the cuts. I mean, I know people have said that, well, I feel that's really important because quite a lot of people accept, oh, well, yes, these cuts, well, I suppose we've got to have them. No. As people have pointed out before, taxation, right? Taxing the rich, right? As well as taxing the rich, I mean, I would personally say, you know, if you've got cuts, you've got unemployment rising, you know, there's a campaign for 1 million green jobs, 1 million climate jobs, if you like. If we've got, which they've been telling us for several years, that we've got a major problem with global climate change, well, we should be building, you know, wind turbines and tidal turbines, which can, of course, be done in Barrow, because you'd tried it, wouldn't you? But you'd build the turbines in Barrow, so you don't throw people out of work. When you've created a green energy, in other words, you're creating something which should be good. You're creating your infrastructure instead of cutting left, right, and centre. The argument needs to be made that no, it's not necessary. You should start off by saying we need 1 million climate jobs.
I just feel we've all been hoodwinked into accepting these cuts myself. I mean, basically, like you just mentioned there, at a time like this, you should be investing in the country. You know, you should be building back up the train, railways and local transport. Rather than importing, you know, instead looking at ourselves, we sit on coal, oil, and gas, and we import all the lot of it. It just reeks. There's jobs out there that could be created, which would raise tax, and we can create our own export, like we used to do, export coal, oil, gas. Get back to them days rather than relying on other countries and buying it off them. That's what we should be looking at. We're just being hoodwinked into taking these cuts and having to just sit there and take it.
Can I come back in on a I mean, I obviously won't come back on all of them, because I think, you know, the thing that you're saying about being hoodwinked into accepting the cuts, there is a reality that the government is not putting money forward. You know, the government is saying we are not going to give money to the civil service, we're not going to give money to local councils, we're not going to give money to the RDAs, we're not going to do all of those things. And I think we have a difficult conversation that we have to have with people, because it's quite a difficult concept to put across, really, that we need to be arguing against the cuts, but we don't need to be blaming the people on the ground who are implementing the cuts. And you may say, well, I would say that anyway, but if you haven't got the money in your purse, you can't buy the loaf of bread. You know, and if you haven't got the money, if the council hasn't got the money, it can't pay out the wages. So I think it is a difficult conversation. But I think, you know, that point, and I've heard it from a number of people, you know, councillors should resign, councillors should refuse to set a fair rent, they should go to prison. But I want to say, what good do you actually think that's going to do?
It shows the backbone what you've got.
But it's not about backbone. What the council are having to do at the moment is they're having to look and say, right, what are the services that we have to deliver that are statutory, in terms of children's services, in terms of elderly services, in terms of those services that have to be done, and actually as a civilised society would say have got to be done. They're not just about statute, they're about saying, you know, we can't have old people dying in their homes because home care doesn't come to them. So the council's got to be looking at those issues. They're then looking to say, how can we minimise the effect of the cut? Very hard. And I tell you what, I mean, I went to a meeting in Wigan and I said to Peter Smith, oh, this feels like deja vu, Peter. It's, you know, I was here 20 years ago talking about the same cuts. And you said, no, you weren't. No, you weren't. These cuts are deeper, harder, faster than we have ever faced as a local authority. And I've never seen, because of course I'm cross-boundary, I deal with Bolton Council as well. And I've never seen two leaders with such ashen faces when they're talking about, and as Herman said, you know, year one, it's going to be tough, but okay, we can, you know, a lot of people are taking voluntary redundancy and early retirement, you know, year two. But getting to the end, they don't know how they're going to find the money and deliver any of the services that are essential. So, you know, I don't want anybody to believe, and there are councillors in the room who may want to speak for themselves, but I don't want anybody to believe that people are taking this issue lightly and are not themselves having sleepless nights thinking about how they're going to do these decisions. But I don't believe, you get the situation that we had in Liverpool, with taxis going around giving out redundancy notices because they didn't set. The people in the end are the ones that will suffer. Not only the deliverers of the service in terms of the employees, but the users of service. And there is a point. Do you want the money? If the council makes no cuts whatsoever, then come, I don't know, December, January, February, the money is going to run out. There won't be the money to pay wages because it isn't there. So I think it's just about, yes, people can say people should make this grandstand to do it, but actually I support the council and what it's doing in terms of managing an impossible situation. I absolutely agree with the points of, why the hell are we cutting people that are the tax collectors when we know that there is so much tax avoidance and tax evasion in this country? I don't understand it. You look at, who was it? Philip Hammond, was it? That somebody gave all his money to his wife to offshore. It may not have been Philip Hammond, so I apologize.
Green.
The guy did the spending review. The guy who did the paper that we're suffering from. That's 1.2 billion offshore in his wife.
And his tax due was £339 million. That's what he should have paid, and he got away with it.
The last point I do want to pick up, though, is disability benefit. Now, I know that Labour introduced a tougher work test to try and get people back up to benefit. But the one thing that there was, which seems to have been removed, is that support for people with disability who are able to work, who want to work, to get back into work. That's being removed. This sort of all-works test that they're introducing now is really terrifying. And there are particular people with conditions that sort of come and go. So one morning you wake up and you're reasonably all right. Things like ME, fibromyalgia, osteoporosis, other things, not osteoarthritis, things where one day you can be reasonably okay, but the next day you can't get out of bed. And these work tests are going to be applied to all of these people. And then those people are then, where are these jobs? People that come to see me in surgery, desperate, people with disabilities, desperate for work and cannot get it, and keep being put in training courses and things. And of course, they're making people actually work for their dole. When does that not actually make unemployment worse? Because shouldn't we be employing people to do some of those jobs? And if they're additional, I struggle with the whole workfare notion altogether. But if they were additional, you could say, well, it's about work ethic. But actually, they're going to be, I think, they're going to be substitutions for jobs. So, yes, I will stop.